our presenter. That is Jared Garai, who is joining us from actually IIBA Global. It's great because I just saw him 5 hours ago, like you said, and when I saw him, I said, I know where you're going to be tonight. Um, he's been traveling from what I'd heard. He was in Romania, or was it Romania and Poland, I think.
Yep.
Um, so that sounded fun, but he is CBAP certified. He is constantly getting into different situations with different chapters, presenting things, just enjoying life as far as a business analyst perspective. So it's great to have him come here right after his long travels and join us and talk to us about uh, artificial intelligence in the business analysis realm. Jarrett, can I hand that off to you?
Of course. Give me 2 seconds. I've got way too many screens. I don't know about any of you, but once you've gone away from one screen, you've gone to multiple screens. Now that I have four, it may be too many.
Oh, yeah, four's too much for me. I do too.
So let me just move some things around. And then don't have any sound, so we'll do screen two. We're good now. You can see that?
Yep, certainly.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. I think this is an amazing presentation. This presentation, by the way, was completely developed by AI. Uh, AI developed it. I'm not actually sitting here. This is an AI avatar that's talking. No, I'm just kidding. Um, it is about AI, and I'm going to do this in a couple of slides anyways, but I did want to just say that AI in this particular context stands for artificial intelligence, because one of the things as business analysis professionals that we should be doing is when we use an acronym, actually explain what that acronym is. Because I know when I first started a career in the energy department, there was a few acronyms that they used, which meant entirely different things than they had in my previous job. So just want to set that straight. AI is artificial intelligence, and I think we all knew that. I just wanted to double check that. AI is, of course, very prevalent in all the things we do. Now, just put into chat a screen, not really a screenshot, but a photograph that I took of a presenter in Warsaw, Poland, where I was just last week. And he was talking about AI and whatnot. And AI is everywhere. And in his organization, they were fighting to get projects spun up. They were trying to get them approved. But if you mentioned it had anything to do with AI, you didn't need to do a business case. You didn't need to do anything. It was already approved. It would go forward.
I'm listening.
All right.
She doesn't want to go out to dinner. We'll do something.
With that, let's get started. I can figure out what works. All right.
I have the power to mute people.
So this young lady, and you can tell that she's not a real person in the fact that I think on her left hand she only has 3 fingers. AI is great at rendering images. It's not so good with fingers. You can usually tell by the number of fingers they have. Usually it's either 6. I've never noticed the 3 before, but they're not. It's not that good. AI makes mistakes, and I'll tell you that over and over tonight, that AI makes mistakes. AI hallucinates. Now, one of the reasons it hallucinates is AI actually just uses statistical modeling to determine what is the most logical thing to come next. Although I'm not exactly sure how that translates into fingers, but it is. It basically guesses what the next thing is going to be. But it guesses with a level of certainty much greater than anything a human can do it. And it does it faster, and it does it repeatedly. So this young lady, and I'm still not sure what I'm going to call her. I think I'm going to call her Maya, but when I was in Romania last week, we tried asking what we should call her, and I think someone said Jane, but I think Maya is a better name for her. So let me tell you about her anyways. She's a senior business analysis professional at this fictional company. She's brilliant, but she's overwhelmed. So every day she sifts through thousands of rows of data, delivery times, driver logs, weather reports, you name it. What she's doing, she's trying to pinpoint what's going wrong because those delivery times are taking longer and longer, right? Then she discovers AI, right? AI didn't just crunch the numbers. It didn't just run reports and siphon through all of these stacks of paper, right? It spotted correlations that she had never even considered. It linked delays to subtle weather patterns and even driver fatigue metrics that were buried in some of the HR reports. With AI, she didn't lose her job. She gained some superpowers, right? She became the strategist, the interpreter, and the decision maker, right? The company cut delays by 30% in the 3 months. Profits rebounded, and Maya, she became the head of data strategy, right? This isn't science fiction, although it is all made up. It is happening in businesses around the world. AI is not replacing business analysis. It's transforming them into true professionals, right? And AI refers to the development of computer systems that can perform tasks traditionally requiring human intelligence. They include recognizing speech, making decisions, solving problems, and identifying patterns, right? It isn't perfect and it's not unbiased. But we'll get to what it is and what it isn't in just a second. It is a set of technologies, right? It's not some magic thing. It's not going to come back from the future and target the unborn child of someone that's going to kill all the machines. That's not going to happen, right? It is a set of technologies that uses data. As I said, it predicts the next thing. If you look at it basically takes vectors and it takes a train of thought and it just jumps to the next logical conclusion. It does that because it's built on large language models, huge portions of data. And we all know that sometimes data, gasp, could be wrong. So sometimes it takes the wrong road because it's making a mistake, it hallucinates, or maybe it's taking the wrong road because the data behind it was wrong. We just got to be careful with it, right? It's a tool for automation and augmentation. It's going to make our lives easier, yet harder. It's going to make it easier because it's going to take away some of those mundane tasks, some of the things that we maybe we're good at, maybe we love doing, but it's going to take us from the basic stuff that we were doing into more senior stuff, into more advanced decision making, more advanced business analysis. Right? As I already said, it is a system trained on data. What artificial intelligence isn't, it's not sentient, it's not conscious. Like I said, it's not going to come back and target Connor. What's his name? I can't remember his name. The young boy from Terminator. Anyway.
John Connor.
John Connor, that's the one.
Terminator.
Remember John. It was such a hard name to remember. How do I do that? But it's not sentient. It's not conscious, right? It's not a replacement for human judgment. And I think this is really important because AI can do what it's told, but AI doesn't know to start something unless it's been told. That human judgment is a crucial part of AI. And I think business analysis professionals have a huge role to play within artificial intelligence, right? It's not perfect and it's not unbiased. But I'm gonna show you a picture in a little bit where, as I said, most of the slides on this are created using AI. And I'm gonna show you a picture, and I tried to get my face on that, but it failed miserably. So we've got someone else's face on it because it was just laughable, because it was very biased and, well, very imperfect. So why does artificial intelligence even matter, right? The pace of change. As I like to say, and I say this pretty much everywhere I go, Things in this world will never again be as slow as they are right now. And when we finish this from in a half hour from now or an hour from now, I could say the same thing. That remember that what I said 30 minutes or 60 minutes ago? Yeah, that was way slower. It's gotten even faster. I remember in university way back in the 1900s, I remember talking to a professor and he was saying that the amount of knowledge in the world doubles every 5 years. And I was flabbergasted. Absolutely could not figure out how the amount of knowledge could double within just 5 years. I think about 5 years ago, I heard it was down to 3 months, and I think it might even be weeks now. Things are getting faster and faster. So the pace of change is absolutely a reason why artificial intelligence matters, because we have to keep up with that, right? And business analysis is no longer confined to static reports or spreadsheets, right? Agile frameworks, real-time dashboards, and predictive analytics are now standard, right? Shifting stakeholder expectations. Decision makers demand faster insights and more dynamic recommendations. Business analysis professionals must adapt to shorter cycles and more iterative feedback, which is important. The globalization and digital transformation, businesses operate across borders and platforms, right? Borders don't matter anymore, right? We require business analysis professionals to understand diverse markets, regulations, and digital ecosystems. And why does it matter? Because if business analysis professionals don't keep up, their insights risk becoming obsolete before they're obsolete before they're even delivered. Then we talk about AI's disruptive potential, right? Automation of routine analysis. And AI can handle data cleaning, trend detection, and even generate reports, freeing business analysis professionals to focus on strategic thinking. Again, that's elevating it from the basic into the more advanced portions of business analysis. The new decision-making paradigms, well, machine learning models can uncover patterns, just like Maya, that humans might miss, but they also require oversight to ensure ethical and accurate use. And I think that's an important thing to talk about, and we'll get to that in a little bit. Changing roles and skill sets. Business analysis professionals must now understand how to work with AI tools, interpret outputs, and communicate findings in ways that complement machine intelligence. So why does that all matter? Well, AI isn't just a tool. It's reshaping the very nature of analysis. Those who embrace it will lead, and those who resist will probably be left behind. It's kind of scary. Continual learning. Well, as I said, things are getting faster and faster and faster. Skills have shorter lifespans because what was cutting edge 5 years ago is outdated. Staying relevant means constantly updating your toolkit. And you've already witnessed this. That's why you're here. You're here to learn, to do better, to practice your art, your craft. You're continuously learning, which is fantastic. Give yourself a pat on the back for that. The cross-disciplinary knowledge is being key, of course. That's because we benefit from understanding data science, user experience, behavioral economics, and more, right? Learning across domains enhances our insight quality. If you were only in IT and you only ever stayed in IT and you didn't understand how HR worked, you didn't understand how finance worked, you probably wouldn't be as competitive of a business analysis professional as you could be, right? That cross-disciplinary knowledge helps you be a better business analysis professional. Learning is a mindset, not a phase, right? It's not about going back to school. It's about integrating learning into daily work through micro-learning, peer exchange, and experimentation. Well, why does that matter? Well, in a world of constant change and constant flux, adaptability is the most valuable skill. Learning isn't optional. It's survival. So that's why artificial intelligence matters. This was the picture that I was telling you about where it was supposed to be my face on that young gentleman, but obviously is not. That is not me. And if you look at his hands again, I always look at the fingers. I think on his left hand, he has 6 fingers, which is kind of scary. would not want to have to buy gloves for that young man. So I'm going to tell you another story, only this time it's a little bit different, right? Imagine it's me in this case, right? 10 years ago, I'm working for an oil and gas company, looking at disparate sources of injury data for the company I was working for at the time. Our mandate was to discover ways to reduce injuries and to make sure that all staff went home alive and unharmed. And in the oil and gas industry, that's a pretty tall order because injuries can happen, and all injuries are preventable, but they can happen on a daily basis, unfortunately. After 4 weeks, and this is actually a true story, but after 4 weeks of combing through the injury data, we discovered that injury rates spike just after a crew began their 7 days on, 7 days off rotation, right after that first coffee break. We made some changes, and we believe that we helped someone avoid injury. We'll never know because we made the change and our injury rates dropped. So we think we did a good job. I'm very proud of that. But what took me 4 weeks could have been done probably in minutes by AI. And if you could imagine all of the things that you have on your to-do list, if you could say the next 4 weeks, I'm going to do before my next coffee break, and I'm going to have the next 4 weeks to work on other stuff, more important stuff, maybe whittle away some of my other priorities. That's a pretty cool thing. And of course, you can apply AI to all those as well. AI is a very, very big time saver. And I think that example, and it scares me that AI could do in minutes what it took me those 4 weeks to do. Again, just an example. All right, so why can't AI replace business analysis professionals? It can't. I'm just going to go out there and say that because AI can surface data, or data, depending on how you want to pronounce that, but it doesn't challenge assumptions. It doesn't weigh critical implications. And the assumptions that we make are something that business analysis professionals are really good at challenging. Does this assumption make sense? Am I accurate in saying that this doesn't happen, that this never happens, or that this is going to happen, or that this should happen? Is that a valid assumption? And that power of questioning or challenging those assumptions is a business analysis professional's superpower when it comes against AI, because it doesn't have that critical thinking, right? AI lacks emotional intelligence and nuance in stakeholder communications. It doesn't know how to accurately discuss concepts with stakeholders. I remember being at a conference, oh my gosh, this was quite some time ago, probably a decade or so ago, and we were talking to one of the practitioners, and we were talking about how he wasn't in this particular project, and this still boggles my mind that this happened, but he was not allowed to interview a certain group of stakeholders because of political reasons, whatever. They were outside of his pay band, and he shouldn't go talk to the C-levels and whatnot. So someone said, well, listen, you tell me the questions that you're going to ask, and I'll ask them for you, which is great. And he said, I can give you those first set of questions, but what I can't give you is how I'm going to react to their answers and what questions are going to stem from those responses. In the same way, AI gets her down the wrong path and doesn't know how to do that, doesn't know how to accurately communicate with some stakeholders. AI also follows logic, and humans imagine new framework and unconventional solutions. But it's just crazy. AI also doesn't have the domain expertise that we do, right? It doesn't know the particular area of what we're looking at. I mean, it can learn, and it learns quickly, but the problem is it's not making it's as I said it earlier. I mean, it's not challenging assumptions. It's not saying, what happens here, what happens there. It doesn't have that expertise that business analysis professionals do, and without that, it's missing a critical skill and a critical point. The other part is the creative problem solving. As I said, it's logic. It doesn't fill in. And it's interesting. I've got a story. And I'm so good at telling stories. But I've got a story about I think it's the Pacific Northwest um, Power Company, I think it is. And a number of years ago, they were having problems because they have thousands and thousands of miles of transmission line. And what would happen is ice would accumulate on the lines, and they would have to send some poor, lonely guy climb up the pole, um, tap on the lines to get the ice to fall off, climb back down, go to the next pole, do the same thing, so on and so forth, for thousands of miles. Well, you can imagine how time consuming that was, how much um, effort it took. So they used some brainstorming. They brought everyone in. And they said, okay, so how are we going to do this? And someone said, well, this happens usually in the springtime when the bears are out. So we could get the bears to climb the poles, and they could knock it off. We could, and someone said, well, how are you going to train a bear to climb the pole? Like, all right. So how do we get the bear to go up the pole? Well, we could put honey on top of the poles, and then the bear would be attracted by the honey just coming out of hibernation, climb the pole, and knock off the ice. All right, but how are you going to get the honey on top of the pole? Well, we could use helicopters. Well, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a pretty silly story, but at the end of the day, what ended up happening is they realized that the vibration of the helicopters would actually knock the ice off. But there's no way that AI would come up with that solution. Humans have that creative problem-solving ability that AI just completely misses. So this is absolutely true, right? It will not replace business analysis professionals. However, those that don't leverage the power of AI will most likely be replaced by those that do. I think, as I said, if AI speeds up our work, if AI is a tool, and I mean, how many of you don't use Excel when you're doing business analysis? And I think Excel is probably the most ubiquitous tool that every business analysis professional is aware of and uses on a regular basis. I've never met anyone that said, no, I don't use Excel. Can you imagine if you had a new business analysis professional that said, no, I don't know Excel, I don't want to learn Excel? How effective would they be? Well, artificial intelligence is no different. If you're not using it, you're probably not leveraging the strengths of the tool, right? And you're going to be a dinosaur. Another AI picture. No extra fingers in this one, which is kind of nice. Both amazing animals and both an incredible, I want to say photo, but it's not a photo, right? It is entirely AI generated. Both of their eyes look a little bit dead in my mind. AI hasn't quite gotten the take of it. But again, I'm going to just render you with a little story. Back at the turn of the 20th century, in the early 1900s, two horses were worried that the latest invention, the automobile, would render them obsolete. Sound familiar? Kind of like AI in business analysis. After a long discussion, they came to the conclusion that their roles would change, but humans would simply find new ways to better use their skills. Business analysis and AI are the same. We're not being put out to pasture, but many of the tedious tasks we've done in the past, we've done by AI, letting us to do the more important work. And hopefully that's more strategic, and hopefully that provides more value. All right, let's get onto it. How are we going to use AI? How is AI going to really make a difference in the work that we do? Well, I think the first one is, AI-driven requirements management, right? Leveraging artificial intelligence to enhance the management of requirements. I mean, you can read this all. I think it's a no-brainer, right? Because it can prioritize our tasks, analyze dependency, and validate requirements. And if you've ever looked at a state flow diagram and gone, does this make sense? Does this work properly? Where are the loopholes and where are not? The traceability matrices. AI can do all of that for us. Using generative AI for documentation and communication. How many of you like doing documentation? How many of you like writing trading manuals, FAQs and whatnot? Why don't you get AI to do it? I know it's interesting. I've always despised creating documentation. It's just something I just don't want to do. Well, it's not that I don't see the value of it. It's just I would rather do pretty much anything other than create documentation. That being said, when I got onto a new project, I always wanted to see the documentation on how the project had been delivered um, before. But yeah, I never liked doing the documentation. And generative AI can do it. It can create it in seconds, in maybe minutes, but yeah, it can do all of that work for us. Yahoo in my mind. Now, some of you like doing that, sorry to say, but you might want to find something better to do. Customer journey mapping. I think any kind of data flow, whether it's it's a state diagram, a customer journey map, a decision table or whatnot, it can visualize and analyze the end-to-end thing. Like, where are the bottlenecks? Where are the pain points? Where are the opportunities? It can analyze all of that for you in record time. The democratization of analytics, it's interesting. And it used to be like, so before I became a business analysis professional, I was part of the reporting group, and I was creating reports for a retail organization here in Canada. And it was great. I created lots of reports, but a report is what happened. A report shows you that it's what they call a lagging indicator. So what? So this happened yesterday. What does that have to do with anything? Can you tell me what's going to happen tomorrow? Can you extrapolate? And AI is really good at extrapolation. And as I said before, it makes mistakes. It's going to hallucinate. You've got to double check the work, but it has the power to predict using some great statistical models and lots of data, but it has the power to predict that reporting will never do. So rather than reporting on what happened, AI actually allows, and the analytical tools that are out there allow you to forecast and hopefully predict a little bit more about where things are going. Again, sometimes they're wrong, but they're wrong in all the right places. This one I think is actually really important to us: data privacy and AI governance. And I think as business analysis professionals, we need to stand up and make sure that AI is used responsibly. I've heard some horror stories of AI being misused. And like any tool, I mean, a hammer is great at building a house, but a hammer can also do lots and lots of damage to lots and lots of things. The tool can be used in good or bad ways, and AI can as well. The latest story I heard was a grandma getting a phone call from her grandchild. It wasn't her grandchild. It was an AI generated deep fake, asking for money, that this grandchild had been put in jail and needed money for bail. And because it sounded exactly like the grandchild, and because it had masked the grandchild's cell phone number, because AI could find all that out. Grandma had no idea it wasn't the grandchild, and completely fell for it and sent the money and was out. Uh, I think as business analysis professionals, we stand in creating a lot of the AI things. So, when you look at ChatGPT or Gemini or Copilot or whatever generative AI solution they have, there was a lot of business analysis that must have gone in there. We have the ability as a profession to dictate how AI is unrolled. And I think we need to put some ethical standards behind how AI is used and how AI is governed. All right, so let's talk about a little bit about the evolving role. And you'll notice here I put gatherer in quotation marks. If the one thing in my career that I've despised more than anything, it is the term that requirements are gathered. It makes my skin crawl, because I've never ever gone and gathered requirements. Requirements are elicited. Requirements are drawn. They're almost, sometimes almost painfully so, that we extract them from our stakeholders. We never simply walk down the path and pick them up. There's some effort involved in proper elicitation. But I think when we talk about the evolving role of business analysis professionals, I think requirements gatherer is where it starts. That's to me is an order taker, and I think AI is going to smash that like a bug. Because if you're just an order taker, AI is going to eat your lunch. Well, so we went from that to a problem solver, and this is actually part of my favorite part is solving problems, right? So we've defined the need. Now we're recommending solutions, and we're solving problems. This is a great spot for business analysis professionals to be in, and we move from there to the collaborator, which is even stronger because now we're not only solving problems, but we're working with other teams. We're working with other groups to solve bigger and more complex problems. From there, we go to the strategic advisor. And I think AI has a part along all of these. And I think AI is going to influence all four of those. As I said, that first one, oh my gosh, I'm still having a hard time saying it. The gatherer, I think those days are numbered. If it's very similar to the project manager who just checks off a checklist. Those days are numbered. But the strategic advisor, I think, is where it's going to be at because I don't see AI having, I see AI having an input into being a strategic advisor, but I don't see it being able to come up with those assumptions, coming up with those nuances, come up with all of the different contexts. I think AI will struggle there. I think that's when the human ingenuity, the human creativity, and the just the business analysis professional is really going to shine. AI will absolutely be a tool, but it's not going to replace it. All right, so let's have a call to action. How are we going to progress as a profession in this world of AI? We need to embrace our technology. And I think I've said that more than enough times. Embracing AI technology is not an option. It's survival. We need to. End of story. Upskill continuously. Upskill, continuous learning, whatever you want to call it. I think, as I said earlier, things will never again be as slow as they are right now. And I know that earlier I said that. Yeah, that was luxurious time. That was before we learned all of this extra stuff. It was slower back then, and it will continue to get faster. Strengthen our strategic thinking as we move up that pendulum, if you will. I think strengthening our strategic thinking is absolutely something that business analysis professionals need to do. Let's get away from being gatherers and let's talk about being a strategic advisor, strategic thinking. Absolute necessity. Mastering communication and storytelling. As I remember saying, AI is not very good at communicating. It's getting better, and all of this that I've said tonight is changing. It will continue to evolve, and it will continue to change, and that's because, again, it's not as slow as it was before. The storytelling is a way that we communicate to our stakeholders in a ways that help them understand. And AI is great at making stories, but they don't tend to be very compelling, and they tend to have lots of holes in it. Whereas our human skills and our human connection allows our stories to be much more compelling and much more relatable, I guess. Build a personal brand. I think that I'm just going to skip over that one. Collaborate across disciplines. Don't be set in your ways, and don't say, well, this is where I live and this is where I'm going to stay. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what year it was. A number of years ago, I was at a conference and had the privilege of listening to Sir Clive Woodward. And if you don't know who Sir Clive Woodward is, you probably don't follow World Cup rugby. I know I don't either, so I stand corrected. But Sir Clive Woodward was absolutely probably the most engaging keynote speaker I've ever had. And he told a story, again, which goes back to storytelling, of how England won the 2003 Rugby World Cup. He said, we had no right to win it. We had absolutely no right. The Scots were better, the Italians were better, the French were better, the South Africans were better, the Kiwis and the Australians all had better teams. There was no way England should have won it. But what we had is we had a team of sponges, and everyone, sponges, where the heck is that? We're talking about rugby. Why are we talking about sponges? And he used the analogy of a sponge versus a rock. And when we talk about upskilling and continuous learning, I'm going to give you that call to action to become a sponge. And a sponge wants to know everything. And the way that he related it is his team didn't say, this is my position, this is where I play, this is what I do. Didn't have these confines of a box. The sponge was an out of the box thinker. The sponge was the person that wanted to know not only is where my role is, I need to know in relation to me where the ball is, where my opponents are on the field, where my teammates are on the field, what they're thinking now and what they're thinking, 5 minutes from now, where they're going to be. Because I need to anticipate what they're going to. I need to be very, very open to new ideas and new concepts. I cannot be closed off. So I guess what I'm saying here is you should be a sponge and not a rock. Stay curious and future focused, right? AI is not new. And I know we talk about AI as though it's some brand new thing and it's going to rock the world and whatnot. AI's been around longer than I've been alive. AI hasn't had the power it has had until just recently. It maybe hasn't had the visibility. And if you look at the picture that I shared in chat earlier with the, this is a pen and why should I buy it? Well, it's got AI. Oh, okay, I'll buy it. I'll buy 1,000 of them. I'll buy 10,000 of them. AI is a huge tool for us, and I think we're going to find that AI is going to be a game changer. But I think there's other things coming. I think we're going to find that those that are curious, those that are sponges, and those that are going to be able to adapt to all of the changes, they're going to be able to adapt to the new technologies and are future focused, are going to be in a much better position as business analysis professionals. And now's the time for you to tell me that I was on mute the whole time, right? If not, thanks very much.
We couldn't hear anything you were saying. We saw you moving, but
That was great, Jared. But
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else is running into this, but I know you referred to something you put in chat, and it could just be my chat, but I haven't seen it yet. So maybe it's just me, or maybe you didn't.
You haven't seen it? Did it not go through?
I believe it did. You sent it before you started presenting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a picture in the chat.
Okay.
Bob, did you leave and come back?
No, I've been here. I just see a message from Steve at 5:29, then Vu, then Steve to everyone. And then I sent a message about the president.
Yeah, it came 3 minutes after your message. So that's odd.
Okay. It could just be
Right.
my
And Travis,
instances.
thanks for explaining that I did not go crazy, because I know I can see it, but
Steve's re-uploading it. But
so who has some questions for me?
Larry, I got a question, and I think you were telling me this when I came in earlier today. Quantum computing. What is going to be the intersection eventually of quantum computing once it's really perfected with AI? Will it be certain applications or something bigger than that?
Larry, I didn't even understand a word you said. Was that in English?
Yeah,
I don't.
quantum computing.
I don't know. Yeah, I just can't comment on that. Sorry.
Because the only thing I can think of is that it will revolutionize the climate science and some other areas that up to now they just cannot crunch the data quick enough. And quantum will do that. So I'm assuming anything to do with AI, with climate science, things like that are really going to take off. They're huge.
yeah, that was my thought as well, Larry, is that the quantum computing is going to be assisting more in the science side of the world instead of like
Right.
real world applications, just because of how quantum computing is structured and how much it actually cost to perform those functions. I've read some articles and it seems like it has to be very focused and fine-tuned on what it's doing at that time, instead of being able to kind of, as Jared was saying, go across multiple plethoras of data and grab and scrub out exactly what you might be looking for.
So
But
one of
Thomas,
the,
even then, scientific advances, there is a integration with business. So somehow we're going to
yeah,
probably see that. I don't know how, but one would think you will.
Sure, yeah, I absolutely believe that. What I believe would happen is that the advancements will be made in science, and then we would see that come to us, but not us directly interacting with quantum computing.
Oh yeah, in that sense, yeah.
Okay, so yeah,
Yes.
we're on the same page.
just an example of for people that aren't aware too much of quantum computing. The other day I read something and it said the fastest computer in the world would take like 1,500 years to solve a problem, and quantum computing did it in 15 minutes. So it's like a great leap in the speed of computations, which leads to a lot of things like flying cars and robots and all kinds of things. And I know Jared, you said if you're an order taker, you're going to be replaced. Quantum computing might take that up a few notches on that chart. So they're not going to think like humans, maybe totally, but the power is going to be amazing once they perfect it. And right now, these qubit things that they have that are part of quantum computing, they're not 100% reliable. A few of the manufacturers need to cool their processors to close to absolute zero to keep them reliable. There are others, though, that are doing it in a different way. And IBM is jumping into the picture now, and they're working on some things. There's a few smaller players that are way ahead of them right now.
And that's because things are getting faster and faster. I think you're absolutely right. I think there's going to be, I mean, even when you talk about computing power, look back to your first ever computer, and now and compare it to the computer you have now. It's so much faster, and it's probably less expensive.
Yeah, Moore's law, which is what that it doubles every 5 years or 2 years or whatever. That's going to be blown away by quantum computing.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a question in chat, and I'm going to say, is it Jerome? Is that how you pronounce your name?
You're on, yeah.
Yeah, it's Yaron.
I think there's a lot of companies that are hugely invested in AI. And I mean, the example that Ryan, the gentleman who had the presentation where I grabbed that screenshot, or I guess it was a screenshot, it was that photograph. He was talking about.
Could I intersect? The question that Jaron had was, what's your thoughts on recent news on impending AI bubble, since most AI companies haven't made profits yet, investors becoming impatient, etc. Sorry, I was like, what is it that you're answering?
I was answering that question. I was just getting a long way around to it.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Anyways, he was talking about it and how AI is this huge buzzword. Everyone's throwing money at it. But did anyone ever do the analysis on what they were getting back from it? Yeah, we've had huge advancements. We can do things faster. We can look through data faster. We can do all sorts of things. But organizations that are creating this, did they go through the whole use case to figure out how they were going to recoup their money? Probably not, from the sounds of things. I think we'll find that some organizations are going to invest in AI more, maybe not deliberately isn't the right word, but carefully. I think we're going to find that Some of them are just going to abandon it and let other organizations do it because they realize that they could spend millions and millions and millions of dollars and get very little in return. I think that's absolutely going to happen. It's interesting. So in Canada back in, I want to say 2018, they legalized the sale of recreational marijuana. And when they did that, you literally had a weed store on every street corner, sometimes two. And there were probably 300 different retail outlets that sold recreational marijuana in the country. And then they realized that there wasn't that big of a need for it. They didn't have that any differentiation. And now I think we're probably down to, well, maybe 5 or 6 different companies, and they're not on every street corner. I mean, they're still prevalent, there's still many, but what will end up happening is it'll get consolidated. The number of organizations and AI companies will dwindle that are producing AI. Now, I think there'll be a lot of companies that do use AI because I think, as I said, AI is a great tool. Pick the right one, you may be set for life. I agree, Rob or Bob.
I'll have a question for you, Jared. So you said almost the entire slide deck was created with AI. Did you review it? Because I recently saw an article about Deloitte, and they made, I'm not sure how large that document was, but they made it for a government, and it had AI typos all over it, and they had to refund that government.
I've reviewed it many, many times. So not only did I review it, it actually has to go through our marketing team, and they have to make sure that it's brand appropriate. The slides were created with AI. I mean, the picture of Maya, the picture of me, so to speak, the picture of the horses, those were AI generated. Most of the other ones were created with my creativity, not AI's. And I did point out the errors that were in the 6 fingers or the 3 fingers and whatnot.
Yeah.
Right. And what was interesting, and you talk about AI, and you have to validate everything that comes with it. There was you've probably heard the story of the lawyer in, I think it was New York, who was preparing for a trial and decided to use ChatGPT to check his cases and came up with these great precedents and put them into court and whatnot, and found out that they weren't real. He got disbarred, lost his career, lost lost everything. You can't trust it. You just can't.
Yeah.
But that being said, you can use it for a lot of good. And as I said, it makes mistakes, and it's like an assistant. It's like an admin. It'll do a lot of the grunt work for you, but you still have to check their work. The one thing I didn't mention, and I probably should mention it now, I don't know if you saw that little character that was on a lot of the screens, the little white guy, look kind of like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. I call him Babot. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to use that term, but it's actually part of our Knowledge Hub on IAB.org. If you go to Knowledge Hub, you'll see the little icon. It's really, really, really small. If you click on him, our Knowledge Hub is actually AI. It's been trained on AI. It's been trained on our material. So on the Babot guide and the Agile extension, the product ownership analysis and whatnot. And you can ask it all sorts of business analysis related questions. I know that I went and asked it. I said, okay, so tell me about photosynthesis. And it's like, yeah, I don't know anything about photosynthesis. What are you talking about? That's not my specialty. But I did ask it, okay, so I gave it some context. I'm trying to create an online reservation app for an airline. Which stakeholders would I or should I address? And it gave me a list of stakeholders. Which questions might I ask them? And it gave me a list of questions. Would I ask all the questions? No, but it sure was a great starting point, and sure beat me having to write down all of these questions that I might want to ask. Again, it would probably save me time in doing some of those mundane things that business analysis professionals may or may not. I personally didn't like doing that part. May or may not enjoy. So if you haven't tried Knowledge Hub with AI, I suggest you do.
And look up some random things.
Well,
Just try it.
It's funny. My daughter, she's 21 and just loves TikTok, and I can see, like, she'll get into TikTok and she'll just be like, she'll sit there for hours and just like get absolutely engrossed in it. It's crazy. I hate to say it, but Knowledge Hub and AI kind of feel the same way. I can get engrossed in that.
That's great.
I'd like to get a question on the various options for training in AI, specifically AI in business analysts. And we had a Bay Area, we were fortunate. We had a great subject on this the last week, and Terry McDaniel presented. So she's one person, but there may be others that you were all aware of that, which is outstanding learning opportunities for this field. Anybody chime in on that?
I think there's all sorts of learning. I don't know of any in particular, but I know that, I mean, that the whole industry is bubbling, I guess, and you know, it's just blossoming left, right, and center. I'm not aware of any, Larry.
And I know there are ones that are free. Now it's like we think we have to pay all the time. There are free out there.
So Larry, I'm gonna put a glib answer here, but have you put that into ChatGPT and asked it?
I should do it right now. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. I was
See what
talking
it says.
I was talking to one of the attendees last week about you know, AI and whatnot. And I'm not a ChatGPT guy. I prefer Copilot. We're a Microsoft shop or whatnot. It's potato, whatever the case. And I've gotten to the point where I don't Google anything anymore. I don't Google it because Google gives me these lists of possibilities where if I ask Copilot, it usually gives me a more concrete answer, and usually in English terms, and more understandable. So I don't have to go, well, do I want this source or that source or this source? It just responds.
Typing in right now, I'll see what it says. Put it in the chat. I don't know, either way.
That'd be awesome.
There is an online blog group called BA Cubed. And I can't BA Cubed. I can't remember the lady's name, but she's spoken.
Angela Mick.
Yes, Angela, she's spoken on AI to our chapters. And it's a great website that she's got. You can subscribe. You have to pay for most of the content, but there's great stuff in there.
Yeah, Angela and Tim Coventry out of Australia wrote a book together called Future Proof, all about business analysis and artificial intelligence. It's an amazing book.
I want to go detail on this, but IBM is definitely here. I see IBM. Coursera, the Coursera course is for IBM. Applied AI Professional Certificate. No surprise there. IBM is doing it well.
Yeah. I get curious about books on AI, knowing that as soon as they're published and sold, they're already, outdated.
Isn't that everything?
Yes.
Well, Steve, I would say yes and no. They're outdated, but there's still some fundamental structure in there that's important, stay over time.
So I have a question for all of you, though. And this is a question that I don't know the answer to, but I want you to think about it. If AI takes over all of the entry-level business analysis tasks and work, how do we find more senior business analysis professionals? Because if they were never a junior, they didn't have that, they didn't grow up with the fundamentals. They didn't learn that, and you can't just suddenly become a senior professional not having gone through the work. How does that work?
Sure.
It's kind of a paradox.
Mhm.
I think we're gonna paint ourselves into a corner, kind of.
That's kind of what I'm thinking, right?
Well,
And it's
I think you have to look at it similar to programmers. Right? So years ago, you had programmers that were, you know, mainframe programmers. And think of that history. And I think that you can probably follow a similar path. You know, I find mainframe programmers know a lot more about computers and hardware and, you know, than computer programmers today that have assistance programs that will say, hey, idiot, you did something wrong. Versus the mainframe programmer would have to program it, go, well, that didn't work. And now I got to go and do something. So I think you can kind of think of it that way. We don't know what it's going to exactly look like, but I think that's similar path.
well, I think the pendulum will swing and it'll hopefully course correct itself a little bit too, but I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah. As the last point on that is that almost every position that you'll search for these days, as far as a senior analyst, it's going to ask for 6 to 10 years of experience with very specific things. Like, so coming back to Jared's question of, well, how are you going to get that experience? Thank you very much, Jared, for presenting. It was great to hear kind of the insights that you had going on in your presentation, and definitely the communications that have gone on afterwards as far as questions are concerned. That was great.